Welcome to the World War II newspaper channel where we read the Chicago Tribune one day at a time, going through World War II as it happened through the eyes of those who lived it. If you enjoy content like this, please subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to get notifications when a new upload is going to premiere. And also, if you want to hear the actual newsmakers, go check out my other channel, the companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. There we have vintage broadcasts, including newscasts, speeches, old movies, and music. And subscribe to that channel and click on the bell icon. Now for the newspaper. News as read from the Chicago Tribune for Sunday, December 29th, 1940. Henry Chop reporting. The weather today. The sun rose at 7:18 a.m. It set at 4:27 p.m. For Chicago and vicinity, cloudy and slightly colder with occasional light rain and possibly some light snow on Sunday. Monday, cloudy, moderate winds, mostly northeasterly. The low temperature, 37 degrees. The high temperature, 39. Today's headline: No war issue stirs nation. Chicagoans, leaders and ordinary folk alike, joined last night in the nationwide appeal to President Roosevelt to keep this country out of a foreign war. General Robert E. Wood, national chairman of the America First Committee, sent to the White House a telegram pledging full support to the rearmament program, but urging that the president in his broadcast tonight assure the United States that under no conditions will we be involved in war abroad. Another non-interventionist organization, the Citizens Keep America Out of War Committee, sent a letter to the president asking that American democracy be preserved by peaceful policies and pledging that the belligerents in Europe, as a first move toward peace, be requested to state their war aims. Each of the two groups represents a large cross-section of anti-war sentiment, particularly in the Middle West. It was disclosed that the America First Committee received huge sheaves of telegrams and letters yesterday approving its stand. More than 250 members of the Citizens Keep America Out of War Committee signed its message. In his telegram, General Wood said, "We of the America First Committee, representing we believe the feeling of the great majority of the American people, look forward to your talk Sunday night, confident that you will impress upon the nation your pre-election statements that under no conditions will you involve our nation in war abroad. We offer you our services in any fight to preserve our integrity and security in these critical days. We realize, as you must, that any attempts on our part to police Europe and Asia might well mean the breakdown of our national system and the loss of liberties for which our fathers fought. We detest all dictatorship and aggression, but we believe it is futile for us to attempt to destroy these things by military intervention. The warnings of Washington and Jefferson are even more applicable today than when they were pronounced. We are for America first. We are behind you in your attempt to build an impregnable defense. No action or group of nations will ever attack a prepared America. The best gift we can make a troubled world is an America to which men and nations may turn for guidance and inspiration in the restoration of civilization." In his communication, the Citizens Keep America Out of War Committee, of which Avery Brundage is honorary chairman, said, "Mr. President, you can be of incalculable service to our country and to humanity if, as a motion for peace, you will call upon the warring nations to state their war aims, ask them to forget glittering generalities, and use specific terms." The strong campaign of the America First and Citizens Keep America Out of War committees was regarded as more than offsetting efforts made by individuals belonging to warlike groups to mobilize sentiment in Illinois and other states for an all-out policy of financial and material aid for Great Britain. These individuals, sometimes anonymously, asked Chicagoans to pile telegrams supporting the interventionist view into the White House so the president will take a strong stand. The solicitation of interventionist telegrams by the White Committee to Defend America by aiding the Allies was being made downstate as well as in Chicago. Adlai E. Stevenson, local chairman, said it was all being done by individuals. Some of the individuals said they were asked for this sort of help by Dr. James Conant and Lewis Douglas, who seemingly have displaced the founder William Allen White as leaders of the fight for more warlike methods. One of the solicitors was Mrs. Emmons Blaine of 101 East Erie Street, social leader who supported President Roosevelt in the election. Washington, D.C., December 28th. President Roosevelt laboring over a momentous statement on the future role of this nation in the World War, which he is to broadcast tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Chicago time, was the objective tonight of an unprecedented flood of telegrams. The missives came from bitterly opposed groups, from those seeking greater aid to Great Britain amounting to warlike moves against the Axis powers, and from non-interventionists who fear the United States is being pushed into the European conflict. A Western Union official termed the flood of telegrams to the White House unprecedented in his experience and said that the people seem to be more stirred up over the question of aid to Great Britain than they have been over anything else. 3 wires running direct to the White House were unable to handle the messages, and the overflow was sent from the Western Union office by messenger boys. The official estimated that these overflow messages numbered 250 an hour from 4 p.m. when he came on duty until midnight. No estimate was available of the number sent by direct wire. Postal Telegraph also had 3 direct wires to the White House and handled additional telegrams by messenger, a batch of 40 going over by one boy shortly before midnight. Climaxing the thousands of telegraphed messages was a petition signed by more than 6,000 everyday Americans who beseeched the president not to lend or give away our defenses to Great Britain. This petition was sent in 2 sections, one this afternoon with 3,500 signatures, and the other tonight with 2,500 additional signatures. Fearful of the effects of this appeal sent under the auspices of the No Foreign War Committee, members of the Committee to Defend America by aiding the Allies countered with a flood of appeals to the president to announce that the British be given every aid possible in order to defeat Germany. The interventionist group was itself divided. William Allen White, its chairman, had announced that he was against sending Americans to fight abroad. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia of New York retorted that White ought to be chairman of a group to aid Great Britain with words, while he and others insist that England be assisted with deeds. The White House response to the various telegrams was significant. The message, with more than 6,000 signatures, which was sent by Vern Marshall, head of the No Foreign War Committee, asked the president to assure the nation in his radio speech that the promises he made in the presidential campaign not to lead the nation into war would be kept to the letter. The reception given this message was in contrast to that accorded a telegram sent to the president on Thursday, which was signed by 170 persons described as prominent Americans. That statement, advising Mr. Roosevelt to take every step necessary to ensure defeat of the Axis powers, was rushed to the White House mimeograph machine. Hundreds of copies were printed and distributed to the press in the same manner that the president's own statements are given out. The petition with the thousands of signatures, on the contrary, was neglected. New York, December 28th. Evidence of discord within William Allen White's war interventionist and propaganda organization mounted today. White's statement on December 23rd that he would tell Europe that the Yanks are not coming apparently has aroused some of his interventionist associates to fury. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia of New York wrote White that the Committee to Defend America by aiding the Allies had better divide. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, December 28th. When Vern Marshall, Cedar Rapids editor and vigorous head of the No Foreign War Committee, learned tonight that another editor, Herbert Agar of the Louisville Courier-Journal had made a radio speech over a Columbia Broadcasting System network advocating help without limitation for Great Britain. He telephoned Columbia officials. Briefly, Marshall explained that he was on the other side of the question and would like the same facilities, a national hookup, to present the non-interventionist viewpoint on the war before President Roosevelt speaks tonight. The Columbia officials regretfully replied that it was impossible to fulfill the request, that no time was available. General John J. Pershing, Admiral William V. Pratt, and a number of other prominent Americans have joined the National Committee on Food for the Five Small Democracies. It was reported yesterday by Chauncey McCormick, chairman of the Illinois branch of the committee. McCormick will speak tonight at the Forum of the First Congregational Church of Oak Park. He has been speaking twice weekly to create sentiment in the Chicago area against the blockade of food supplies to Poland, Finland, Norway, Belgium, and Holland. Hey guys, if you are fascinated by the 1930s and 1940s and love this newspaper channel, maybe you would like my other channel, the World War II radio channel. There we play radio broadcasts from a specific date. I think you will enjoy that channel if you love this one, and don't forget to subscribe to it. And now for world news. Bern, Switzerland, December 29th. The movement of approximately 300,000 German troops across Hungary into Romania continued throughout the night under the screen of a newly imposed Hungarian censorship. Reports from informed sources in neutral Yugoslavia said today that many fresh German units had moved into Timisoara in the Banat region of Romania on the Yugoslav frontier, less than 100 miles from Belgrade, the Yugoslav capital. This Nazi movement, whatever its ultimate purpose, was being carried out with a thoroughness that ruled out any possibility of bluff, Balkan observers declared. Pontoon bridge sections, light and heavy artillery, field kitchens, canned food stocks, medical supplies, and even spare railroad parts moved southeast under the guard of German railway police. Reliable reports said motorized equipment of all sorts, including tanks, infantry, transport trucks, ambulances, and motorcycles, crossed Hungary on flat cars. Until yesterday, it was believed generally that the German move meant either a further policing of Romania or a safeguard against possible British moves northward from Greece. A Russian move south through Moldova also was not excluded. Reports from Belgrade, however, not only gave credence to possible pressure on Yugoslavia from the Timisoara region, but said that German columns were piling up on the frontiers of Yugoslavia in southern Austria. Belgrade, Yugoslavia, December 28th. Unconfirmed reports to military circles here tonight said that new Italian troop concentrations had arrived on Yugoslavia's northwest frontier. One report was to the effect the Italian forces totaled 1.5 divisions, approximately the number reported to have withdrawn from that zone recently. Another rumor was that the troops might not be Italian. Several foreign military attachés cut short their Christmas vacations to return to Belgrade as apprehension here increased. Budapest, Hungary, December 28th. Authoritative informants reported tonight that the mass of men and material that Germany is sending to Romania will be sent across Bulgaria to attack Greece only in the event Britain lands a force in Greece and attempts to invade Central Europe. These German troops, nearly 500,000, are expected to be in the Balkans by the end of January, are described as chiefly an insurance measure. The movement of additional troops now is underway in earnest, and there is drastic curtailment of domestic train service to clear the tracks in both Hungary and Romania. Double and triple track lines from the German-Hungarian frontier to Romanian border stations were jammed with trains averaging 60 freight cars from the German state railways. The locomotive of one train was often only 200 yards behind the caboose of another. The freight cars carried 40 men with full equipment. Istanbul, Turkey, December 28th. The The newspaper Akşam, which often speaks the Turkish government's mind, said tonight that the movement of German troops into Romania can only further damage German-Soviet relations. If Germany's move is not directed against the Balkans, the paper said it can only be directed against Soviet Russia. Bucharest, Romania, December 28th. Usually well-informed Italian circles said today there is a likelihood that Prince Umberto soon will take over the command of Italy's armed forces, thus giving proof of the unity of the royal house with the fascist regime. The crown prince is popular with the Italian masses. Athens, December 29th. The daring stab of a Greek submarine, reported officially to have sunk 3 Italian transports carrying troops and equipment, was followed today by Greek claims of new gains ashore. The 3 ships, a Greek Ministry of Marine communique said, were part of a convoy moving reinforcements across the Adriatic from the Italian port of Brindisi to the Albanian port of Valona, an Italian foothold threatened by Greece's army. The communique said the vessels totaled between 25,000 and 30,000 tons and that they were protected by a heavy escort of warships. Sinking of the enemy vessels was followed by a chase of several hours by enemy destroyers, which dropped depth charges, it said. However, our submarine returned safely to port. As for the land war, a 2-sentence General Staff communique merely said there were successful local operations on a reduced scale. Prisoners were taken. The government spokesman, however, said that despite thickening weather, our troops have been able to advance north and northwest of Chimera. Italian resistance in defense of Tepelini on a junction of roads leading to Valona was said to be crumbling. Reports from the front said that Greeks besieging Tepelini won domination of the town with bayonet charges and shell fire, and that the battle had reached a decisive stage. Under the pounding of Greek guns, it was said, Italian forts have been smashed, their artillery has been drawn back from elevated positions, and their morale has been lowered. Rome, December 28th. Italian warplanes attacked the naval base at Preveza on the west coast of Greece, the Italian High Command asserted today, scoring direct hits on steamers in the bay. Other bombing and fighter formations attacked troop preparations and highway junctions in Albania, a communique reported, while on the ground enemy attacks have been repulsed by our decisive reaction. Cairo, Egypt, December 28th. The concentration of British forces about beleaguered Bardia was officially reported proceeding smoothly today, while British artillery thundered steadily at that vital Italian base in Libya. Advanced motorized detachments went on clearing the country to the west, General Headquarters announced, and 4 additional Italian guns were captured. The number of fascist prisoners of war in hand and counted was put at 38,114, some 10,000 of them non-Italians. To these captives, the British attributed 2 stories: that the Italian defenders of Bardia, ordered by Premier Mussolini himself to die rather than give up, would turn that base into a second Alcazar, and that the Italian command was urgently strengthening the defense of the port of Tobruk to the west in fear of an early British attack there. London, December 28th. General Charles de Gaulle, leader of French forces still allied with Britain, exhorted all Frenchmen today to keep up the fight against Germany and told them a great triumph might be theirs. As de Gaulle broadcast his appeal, declaring that if North Africa, Syria, and the French fleet were fighting for France, the Mediterranean battle would end promptly in victory, reports circulated in Lisbon that French naval forces may be gathering in North Africa. Travelers from unoccupied France said they had been informed reliably that French Chief of State Philippe Pétain had authorized some French naval officers to spend vacations in North Africa, and that several French naval units already have been dispatched there from Toulon. London, December 29th. 2 days without newspapers during the Christmas holidays created so many rumors regarding Adolf Hitler's intentions, alleged troop movements, and his relations with Moscow and the Vichy government that the British press is wavering between accepting them as true or branding them as German propaganda intended to distract British vigilance from key points where important decisions or developments are taking place. The general impression here in the press and in so-called authoritative quarters is that all the reports about the Germans planning any action in the Balkan countries should be discounted. Military observers believe the Balkan rumors are intended to divert British attention from the possibility of an attempted invasion of this country directly or through Ireland. Although Northern Ireland is strongly garrisoned and a base for a number of units of the Royal Air Force, the neutrality of Ireland is said to be leaving a long and vulnerable coastline open to invasion. London, December 28th. In an evident attempt to smash Germany's winter preparations for invasion of England, great squadrons of British planes dropped bombs upon Nazi-held bases in France tonight at a rate that reached 100 a minute. A declaration that the British objective apparently had been reached was made by a neutral air observer in close touch with the British air staff. He described the assault as equaling in intensity anything ever delivered by the Germans on any British city or town. The whole west coast from Calais to Boulogne is alight, one observer reported. This mighty attack, which was directed also at Nazi big gun emplacements and reddened the French coast for miles, capped a series of assaults in progress almost continuously since Thursday. New York, December 28th. The Berlin radio in a report picked up tonight by CBS said British planes again bombed Zurich, Switzerland, seriously injuring 11 persons. Downing Street had already answered the last Swiss protest about the bombing of Basel before Zurich became the victim of a new attack on the Royal Air Force, the report said. Several explosive bombs and a number of incendiary bombs destroyed apartments, workshops, and an electric power line of the Swiss Federal Railway. Manchester, England, December 28th. 72 of the city's recent air raid victims were buried today with a mass funeral. London, December 28th. The historic Scots Kirk at Rotterdam, the Netherlands, which has been attended by Scots for more than 300 years, has been demolished, Church of Scotland officials disclosed today. Many of the church's books, records, and communion vessels dating from 1643 and the silver font were removed to a museum. The church was a refuge for exiled Covenanters in the 17th century. Berlin, December 28th. The destruction of 37,163 more tons of British shipping by 2 German submarines, 4 armed merchant ships, and the 12,823-ton Weyotira was claimed today by the German High Command. In addition, in a summary of Nazi activity of yesterday and last night, the High Command confirmed earlier unofficial reports of the apparent sinking by a German scouting plane of a merchant ship of 8,000 to 10,000 tons east of the mouth of the Thames yesterday. These other blows against Britain were reported. An overnight raid of strong effect on London, where it was declared there were violent explosions and large fires. A bombardment by German naval guns and artillery, which forced British ships to flee from an attempt to approach German-held Dunkirk on the French coast. Shanghai, China, December 28th. Stories of intensive German raider activity from the Indian Ocean to the South Pacific reached here today, along with reports that 2 Nazi merchantmen equipped as sea prowlers recently left Kobe, Japan. These stories came a day after the Australian government's report that a sea raider bombarded the British equatorial islet of Nauru in the Pacific south of the Japanese-mandated Marshall Islands yesterday. Small Nazi freighters left Shanghai last week, possibly with supplies for the German raiders. Travelers from Hong Kong brought reports that more than 20 Norwegian vessels had been sunk and a number of British vessels attacked by raiders in the Indian Ocean. Between Hong Kong and India, it was said, British ship crews are getting bonuses as a result of this sort of activity. Passengers on the Canadian Pacific liner Empress of Asia said the ship recently took of the normal 2 days to get from Shanghai to Hong Kong, going far off her course and zigzagging to avoid raiders. London, December 28th. Ships of standardized design are to be built in sections at British steel plants and put together at launching sites under a government plan for the speedy construction of vessels, it was disclosed today. Melbourne, Australia, December 28th. The sea raider which bombarded the British-mandated island of Nauru yesterday ran down the Japanese flag and hoisted the Nazi swastika before opening fire, it was announced today. Navy Minister William M. Hughes said the raider appeared just before dawn and signaled with his Morse lamp, "Do not use wireless or I will shoot mast down. I am going to shoot at stores and phosphate jetties." Hughes said the instructions were obeyed and the radio station was left intact. The raider fired on loading equipment, stores, and fuel tanks, but left private houses untouched. New York, December 28th. Two commanders of German auxiliary cruisers operating in overseas waters have been awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross by Adolf Hitler, the German radio said in a broadcast today. The two officers are Captains Kruder and Kahler. The former's ship, the radio said, has accounted for 79,000 tons of enemy shipping and has carried out all other tasks assigned to it with great success, while Captain Kahler's vessel has sunk 52,000 tons of enemy shipping or shipping in the service of the enemy. Berlin, December 28th. DNB, official German news agency, said today that the German Navy is using a former British submarine, the 2,500-ton Seal, in operations against England. DNB reported the submarine, her commander, and her crew were captured afloat in the North Sea last May 5th after she had been incapacitated by a mine. The agency said the vessel was recommissioned in a German harbor. The Seal, an undersea mine layer, was reported overdue and presumably lost by the British Admiralty on May 12th. One of the Porpoise class, she carried a normal complement of 55 men. James Fighting Ship lists the Porpoise class tonnage as between 1,520 and 2,157 tons. New York, December 28th. A representative of the local offices of the Standard Oil Company, New Jersey, reported tonight that no additional details of the sinking of the Panama Transport Company tanker Charles Pratt under Panama Registry had been received here. Further information was being sought from the Anglo-American Oil Company in London and from Captain Eric R. Blomquist, master of the tanker, it was said. Captain Blomquist reported in a cable received early today that all but two of the crew were saved. The ship carried an American crew of 42. The captain's message did not disclose whether his ship, which was operated by a Standard Oil subsidiary, was sunk by a war weapon or an accident. The ship was sunk on December 21st in the Atlantic while en route from Aruba, Netherlands, West Indies, to Freetown, Sierra Leone, West Africa, with 5 million gallons of oil consigned to the British-Mexican Petroleum Company. It is believed to have gone down near Freetown. New York, December 28th. Laurence Olivier and his wife Vivian Lee sailed from Jersey City today on the liner Ex-Cambion for Lisbon en route to London. "It's not the safest place in the world right now," said Miss Lee, "but it's home and that's where I want to be." Her husband said he would offer his services to the British government for whatever they think I can do. Both said they hope to return to this country when the war ends. Moscow, December 28th. Two bands of border trespassers were reported today to have been wiped out by Russian army troops in frontier clashes. A dispatch to Komsomol, the Communist Youth Party organ, and Pravda, official communist newspaper, said one border guard unit accounted for both bands, killing the violators and capturing their arms, munitions, and smuggled goods. The dispatch did not say where the clashes occurred. The first clash was said to have occurred several months ago when the Red troops met the bandits in hand-to-hand fighting in the mountains. The second, the dispatch said, had just taken place with the troops routing the trespassers from their volcano hideout with rifle fire and hand grenades. Vichy, France, December 28th. The French cabinet met today apparently to hear a report by Navy Minister Admiral Jean Darlan on his Christmas trip to occupied France. It has been reported that he delivered a personal letter from Chief of State Pétain to Adolf Hitler. Pétain was understood to have outlined the basis on which he would agree to collaboration with Germany. Bern, Switzerland, December 28th. Jacques de Ruyt, strong rightist leader, paid Vichy his first visit in months today and was reported to have pledged his support to Chief of State Pétain. According to diplomats at Vichy, Marshal Pétain summoned de Ruyt and enlisted the aid of his tough French Popular Party in an attempt to bolster his government against opposition. The Marshal was reported also to have asked de Ruyt to cooperate with Gaston Bergerie, independent rightist leader. Both de Ruyt and Bergerie soon may be given official positions in the government. The reported agreement puts an end to speculation that Pierre Laval, ousted foreign minister and vice premier, was trying to enlist the rightist leader's aid in Paris. Berlin, December 28th. Authorized sources said today official Germany had nothing to add to warnings issued yesterday by the Nazi press to both Ireland and the United States that Ireland would continue in the German blockade zone come what may. These sources added that yesterday's editorials had been carefully studied and found to present the problem in an excellent manner. Karl Mengerli, semi-official commentator for the German Foreign Office, said in an article Friday in the Borsen Zaytun that Ireland would remain in the blockade zone even if it were excluded by armament from the danger zone specified in the American Neutrality Act. Ships calling there, he said, would be exposed to warlike action. Tokyo, December 28th. Foreign Minister Yosuke Matsuoka asserted today that Japan is in great sympathy with the present hard plight of France and has not the slightest intention of taking advantage. Speaking at a formal luncheon given for the French and French Indochina economic missions now negotiating here, Matsuoka declared that Japan now is faced with pressing needs which make a full understanding necessary in order that the closest possible cooperation between the two countries may be realized. He said he earnestly hoped that Indochina would cooperate in establishing the stabilization of prosperity of East Asia. Bucharest, Romania, December 28th. The Hungarian-Romanian press feud over Transylvania, over which Hungary recently took a large slice from Romania in an Axis-dictated settlement, was resumed today. The local newspaper Universal contested the legend of the Hungarian millennium, according to which Hungary should have remained intact with Transylvania after 1918. The paper reproduced an Italian map dated 1629 and reprinted several years before 1918 in the Hungarian lexicon, showing Transylvania to be a principality apart from Hungary and demonstrating that Hungarian-speaking residents of Transylvania were not considered Hungarians. Universal also cited Hungarian documents of the 17th and 18th centuries, showing that such towns as Arad and Oradea Mare had almost no Hungarian inhabitants. Budapest, Hungary, December 28th. The resignation last November 28th of John Palenyi, for 7 years Hungarian minister to Washington, D.C., finally was broken to the Hungarian public today by the government-controlled press. The bare announcement the envoy had been relieved of his post by Regent Admiral Horthy on the advice of the Foreign Office was published. In announcing his resignation at Washington, Palenyi said he had planned to retire and would remain in the United States indefinitely. In Washington diplomatic quarters, it was believed he was dissatisfied with his government's partnership in the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo alliance. Reports in the Balkans said the Axis had put pressure on Hungary to name a man more willing to work for the Axis. Rome, December 28th. Virginio Gaeta, authoritative fascist editor, topped an Axis press offensive against the sending of American supply convoys to Britain by way of neutral Ireland, with the assertion today that this would start the war spreading to the Western Hemisphere and the Pacific Ocean. The editor of Il Giornale d'Italia said Japan tied to Rome and Berlin by an all-for-one and one-for-all pledge against outside intervention in Eastern or Western wars is watchful and with her large means and wide Asiatic influence would not allow without immediate reaction an extension of the European and Asiatic conflicts. Direct responsibility, Gaeta warned, would fall on the Washington government for the reaction that such intervention would provoke on the part of the Axis and Japan. Washington, D.C., December 28th. William Phillips, ambassador to Italy, said today that he would leave Tuesday for Rome by clipper plane. Phillips, who has been on sick leave in the United States for several months, came to Washington today to confer with President Roosevelt and Secretary of State Cordell Hull. Mexico City, December 28th. Foreign Office sources said today that Mexico would continue her membership in the League of Nations and that Isidro Fabela, Mexican delegate, would soon return to Geneva. There had been support in government circles for a suggestion Mexico withdraw from the League, both for economy and because of dissatisfaction with its work. Hong Kong, December 28th. English husbands, dissatisfied with the removal order that has separated them from their families, decided at a mass meeting last night to test its legality. They accepted the offer of M.A. Cairns to bring his wife back from Sydney, Australia, to provide a test case. The order prohibits the re-entry of persons evacuated. Though the husbands reassured their readiness to bear the necessary burdens imposed by the war, they bitterly criticized rejection of a petition for the return of their wives and families and appealed to the governor to revoke this great travesty of justice. Vichy, France, December 28th. 60 alleged communists have been sent to internment camps in the last 3 months by police of the Puy de Dôme department surrounding Clermont-Ferrand. It was disclosed here today. Vichy, France, December 28th. As a Christmas surprise for old Marshal Pétain, France's children showered him with letters, and today the ground floor rooms of the Chief of State's residence look like a post office. Dozens of emergency secretaries are working on heaps of letters, 2 million of them piled shoulder high. Almost every child in unoccupied France between the ages of 6 and 15 had sent one. The flood was started by a brief note to each school in the unoccupied zone suggesting that the children send pictures as a Yule gift to the marshal. Mostly the letters contain drawings, youngsters' drawings of their houses, farms, schools, or favorite animals, to more ambitious projects like panoramas of local beauty spots and such patriotic themes as one youth's view of Verdun, where Pétain saved France the first time. Berlin, December 28th. Authorized sources indicated today that associations between Vichy and Berlin are not straightened out satisfactorily. They said the present relationship had not been endangered by the French cabinet shakeup, but added the question of the future, namely cooperation as contemplated and planned with Pierre Laval, ousted French vice premier and foreign minister, cannot be discussed at present. Berlin, December 28th. Germany will observe the 109th anniversary of the birth of Heinrich von Steufen, founder of the World Postal Union, on January 12th, with a set of 4 special cancellation stamps reminding citizens of the Nazi military machine. The stamps depict dive bombers dropping bombs on factories, tanks blazing away with all their guns, parachute jumpers in the air, and mosquito boats skimming the seas. In order to obtain these cachets, however, special winter war relief stamps, which cost more than the regular postage, must be purchased. Tokyo, December 28th. 14 persons, including a communications ministry official, were killed when a commercial plane on a test flight crashed at sea near Chiba Peninsula, the government announced tonight. Wellington, New Zealand, December 28th. Future building contracts involving use of more than half a ton of structural steel or costing more than $10,000 may not be undertaken without permission of the government building controller, it was announced today. London, December 28th. An orange and lemon cellar was added to Britain's war casualties today. When news spread that he was selling his wares from a barrow at Croydon, the man was surrounded by women who exchanged blows, knocked off one another's hats, and screamed as they tried to buy the fruit. Scratched and bleeding, the orange vendor fought his way out and called the police. When help arrived, the women were gone and the barrel was bare. Bucharest, Romania, December 28th. The government issued an order today stipulating that craft certificates issued to Jewish artisans will not be renewed. Agreements between masters and Jewish apprentices also will be canceled, the order said. London, December 28th. Workers in Scottish coalfields are determined to take a 2-day holiday over the New Year's in the face of a government request that they take only one day, it was indicated today. Union heads in Scotland said that the government request is contrary to the advice of the union, which contended that there would be a more complete resumption of work after the 2-day holiday. Christmas is not usually observed in Scotland, most of the workers saving up for tremendous merriment over New Year's. This holiday usually is observed for 3 days in the Scottish coalfield regions. Most other Scottish workers are taking only 1 day this year. Meantime, it was announced that the operators of buses, subways, and trolley cars in Glasgow have voted not to work after the air raid sirens sound. This decision is contrary to that of most other transport workers throughout Great Britain. Madrid, Spain, December 28th. 211 Spanish merchants have been sentenced to labor battalions during the last 2 months in connection with a drive against profiteering and smuggling of foodstuffs, it was officially announced tonight. In Madrid, where the cleanup drive has been most intense, only one merchant has been sent to a work gang. The largest number of arrests have occurred in cities of the former red zone, including Valencia, Murcia, Ciudad Real, and Barcelona, where 89 persons were sentenced. Buenos Aires, Argentina, December 28th. The mayoral ban put on Charlie Chaplin's movie The Great Dictator after it had been approved by the Municipal Censor Board has aroused the indignation of many Buenos Aires citizens. Most of the newspapers condemned the ban as relegating Argentina to the status of a kafir country, and some sarcastically suggest it was applied not at the request, but at the behest of the Italian ambassador. The envoy said the film attacked the Italian regime. Hey guys, if you are fascinated by the 1930s and 1940s and love this newspaper channel, maybe you would like my other channel, the World War II radio channel. There we play radio broadcasts from a specific date. I think you will enjoy that channel if you love this one, and don't forget to subscribe to it. And now back to national news. Washington, D.C., December 28th. The extent of the collapse of the American aerial rearmament program was shown today in official figures released by the Department of Commerce. The statistics revealed that Britain got only 254 fighter planes and bombers from the United States in November, when President Roosevelt's 50-50 rule of thumb was in operation, dividing military plane production between the United States and Britain. The rule, as the president has acknowledged, is an elastic one. It was reported in military circles that in operation, most of the combat planes were going to Britain, and the United States was receiving largely training planes. The 254 planes sent to Britain in November would indicate that American military aircraft production for the month was approximately 500 planes, or far behind schedules, which called for at least 1,500 planes for the month. The rate of production in America, indicated at 500 and claimed to exceed 800, is far behind estimated German production. At the time Colonel Charles A. Lindbergh visited Germany shortly before the war, he estimated the Nazis were turning out 20,000 planes a year and had sufficient facilities to double production. Conservative military and civil aeronautical experts estimate German production of military planes is at the rate of 50,000 a year at present. This is the goal Mr. Roosevelt has set for the size of an American Air Force. Washington, D.C., December 28th. Two Democratic senators, Harry F. Byrd of Virginia and Edwin C. Johnson of Colorado, served notice today they would press for a Senate inquiry into the progress of national defense as soon as the new Congress convenes. Johnson said he had received assurance from Chairman Morris Shepherd, Democrat Texas, that the Senate Military Committee would give early consideration to his proposal. Byrd, who has suggested the creation of a 9-member special committee to study defense, said such a group would be in the nature of a clearinghouse to keep Congress informed on progress of defense preparations. He said he had been trying to obtain information about the defense program and had found the greatest difficulty in acquiring anything accurate and definite. Washington, D.C., December 28th. Assurances that supplies of aluminum were ample for the defense program were given today by Edward R. Stettinius, Jr., Defense Commissioner in charge of industrial materials. In a report on existing and prospective supplies of metal, Stettinius asserted that this week's curtailment of operations by one aircraft plant was unnecessary. It is unfortunate that public anxiety over our national defense preparation should be based upon reports of shortages which do not exist, Stettinius said. Creation of such anxiety, which has no basis in fact, serves no patriotic purpose. Identifying the plant as that of the Northrop Aircraft Corporation at Hawthorne, California, he said the concern subsequently had informed the Defense Commission that shipments scheduled by the Aluminum Company of America would permit maintenance of 10-hour shifts with no interruption of schedules. The plant announced Monday that shifts of 2,000 employees were being reduced from 10 to 8 hours immediately because of inability to obtain aluminum for a $10 million order for military planes. The announcement was followed by reports that the government was considering both rationing and imposition of a priority system to assure adequate supplies of aluminum for defense orders. Washington, D.C., December 28th. Borrowing from British experience, the War Department announced today that the policy of farming out arms contracts to small firms would be applied vigorously in this country to distribute the defense load as widely as possible. Holders of defense contracts will be encouraged, the announcement said, to sublet substantial parts of the work, and each will be expected to select his own subcontractors. Announcing the appointment of Joseph L. and Francis Trecker of Milwaukee as special advisors on farming out methods, Robert P. Patterson, Undersecretary of War, said the policy would be employed more and more as the burden on larger firms increases. Baltimore, Maryland, December 28th. A local draft appeal board held today that a tool layout man at an aircraft plant was not essential to the national defense industry and refused to grant him deferment from military service. The appellant was Dominic J. Falkenstein, 24 years old and single. Falkenstein, employed at the Glen L. Martin plant, asked deferment on grounds he was engaged in an industry essential to national defense. Chairman Clarence W. Miles of the appeal board said that although Falkenstein was engaged in a defense industry, he could be replaced and his loss would not disrupt efficient operation of the industry. Honolulu, territory of Hawaii, December 28th. Harry Toshikachi, 28 years old, a Japanese, was sentenced to 2 years in prison today as Hawaii's first draft evader. He pleaded guilty. New York, December 28th. Representative Pete Jarman, Democrat, Alabama, today characterized as a deliberate slur on the administration the assertion made recently by another congressman that Panama Canal defenses were inadequate. Jarman's statement was made as he arrived from an inspection trip of the canal zone. A week ago, Representative Fred Bradley, Republican Michigan, one of 12 congressmen returning from a similar trip, asserted there was not a modern bomber in the zone. During his visit, Jarman said he visited with a relative, Major General Sanderford Jarman, a second-ranking officer in the zone. The congressman added that General Jarman must be satisfied with the defenses because if he had not been, he would have told me. Another passenger, William A. Dotson, electrical engineer, who said he had been working on bomb-proofing of the canal locks, declared inefficiency of the zone engineering department was retarding the work. He accused the department of using methods 25 years old. Honolulu, territory of Hawaii, December 28th. Army officers said today that military plans call for eventually concentrating at least 500 Army planes in Hawaii, where they could be reinforced by overnight flights from the Pacific coast. Officers said the Army was contemplating replacing the B-18 bombers here with a larger four-motor type of bomber, but expressed belief the change might be delayed because of planes being sent to Britain. Port of Spain, Trinidad, December 28th. Hugh Arnold, engineer with 6 members of New York engineering and architectural firms that have a contract to design and supervise construction of 4 new United States Army bases in the Caribbean, completed a survey here today and returned to Puerto Rico by air today. The men inspected 3 tentative sites. Arnold said the Coroni Swamp, offered by the Trinidad government as a site, could be reclaimed and made suitable, but it would require years. Even with dry land available, construction of a Trinidad base and airport is expected to take 3 years. Washington, D.C., December 28th. Representative Everett M. Dirksen, Republican, Illinois, tonight called upon President Roosevelt to explain the spending policies of the federal government in the fireside chat he has scheduled for tomorrow night. Dirksen said that federal extravagance is demonstrated by the fact that travel expenses of the federal government for the fiscal year, which ended last June 30th, were $99,286,641, and indications are that they will reach about $150 million in the current fiscal year. In the first 4 months of the present fiscal year, Dirksen said travel expenses have totaled a little more than $47 million. Travel expenses alone for 1 year would supply almost 6,000 basic training planes for our military forces, Dirksen added. Yes, in the face of demands for more taxes and more spending, every suggestion for economy in the non-military bureaus is scorned by the White House. The $99,286,641 spent for traveling in the 12 months ending last June 30th would provide almost 15 billion miles of travel in coaches at the 1.5 cents a mile rate for non-round-trip journeys. New Brunswick, New Jersey, December 28th. Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt said tonight that every young person, boy or girl, should give a year's service to the nation. I believe work camps are good for us all, she told the International Student Service Conference at New Jersey College for Women. I know people are afraid of making a thing like that compulsory because it seems like something fascist countries have done. But remember, everything we do must go through Congress. She added that most people do not agree with me. Asked if she believed this country would become involved in war, she replied, "At the present time, I think we should keep out of war, but you can't make up your mind and close it to changing circumstances." Both Germany and Italy long have pursued the policy of training their youth in party principles and discipline. Germany has the Hitler Youth Organization, while Italy has a Balilla, or Fascist Youth Organization. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, December 28th. Many financial irregularities in the $290 million highway building program started by the late Huey Long in 1928 were charged today in an official report to Governor Sam H. Jones, who ordered the investigation. Jerome A. Hayes, supervisor of public funds and Jones' key financial advisor, made public the report dated December 20th, in which he said his preliminary and incomplete survey had disclosed many wide irregularities involving numerous former politicians, some members of the present legislature, and others. Hayes said Louisiana could claim $650,000 in refunds already on the basis of the incomplete audit and asked Governor Jones for the services of at least 50 additional auditors for a complete study of highway affairs. During the tenure of Long and his machine that retained power until last spring when Jones was elected. New York, December 28th. Routing a congressman out of a Pullman drawing room between 6 and 6:30 a.m. and forcing him to shiver in a cold entry hall while extracting an additional fare of $1.70 is worth $25,000 in damages, Representative Samuel Dickstein, a Democrat in New York, claimed in a suit filed in federal court here today. The action is against the Pennsylvania Railroad. Dickstein left his bed, he said, and paid the $1.70 under protest. He has since been ill. Washington, D.C., December 28th. Despite a partial house cleaning, the National Labor Relations Board remains a menace to industrial peace, and the entire program of national defense may be thereby jeopardized, the Special House Committee investigating the operation of the Wagner Act reported today. Completing a 17-month study of the board and its administration of the act, a committee majority of 3 rendered a 75,000-word fiscal report to Congress. The document presented in great detail the evidence upon which the conclusion was reached that the board was grossly partisan to the CIO and deplorably biased in its relations to employers and employees. The committee further charged that the board, by its methods, induced and protracted a large number of industrial disputes. Many of the board employees, from the very highest to the lowest, have radical and communistic tendencies, the report asserted. The board engaged in invidious practices such as blacklisting litigants before it, promoting boycotts against parties whose cases it intended to adjudicate, and seeking to legalize as part of the American way of life the infamous anarchist sit-down strikes. A good beginning toward reorganization of the board was made, the committee stated, with the appointment of Dr. Harry A. Millis to replace Chairman J. Warren Madden and the subsequent resignations of Board Secretary Nathan Witt and others, together with the abolition of the Division of Economic Research headed by Russian-born David Sapos. New York, December 28th. Sylvia Egoloff, who spent several months in a Mexican prison while authorities investigated the assassination of Leon Trotsky, secluded herself today in the Brooklyn home of her father, Samuel Egoloff, a realty agent. Released in Mexico City, December 20th, Miss Egoloff, 30 years old, reached Newark, New Jersey last night, then continued her journey home by automobile. Frank Jackson, confessed slayer of Trotsky, Russian revolutionary leader, was a close friend of Ms. Egoloff, a former social investigator in the New York City Department of Welfare. Clarion, Pennsylvania, December 28th. A 43-year-old automobile mechanic captured after a 24-hour hunt tonight was charged with killing his uncle and a 12-year-old cousin, Sheriff M.O. McKinley said. McKinley reported he had formally accused Frank Deerolf of murdering Reuben Levi Wentling, age 58, and his son Reuben L. Jr., and that we will charge him later with twice raping Wentling's daughter, Elizabeth, age 22. The sheriff said Deerolf admitted having supper at the Wentling farm at home last night and then shooting to death his uncle because of 27 years of brooding over the slaying of his parents and a sister in the same house. Deerolf told officers that he blamed Wentling for the triple slaying, refused to believe that Deerolf's father had killed his wife, daughter, and then himself. Deerolf said he came here from Youngstown, Ohio to shoot Wentling, added the sheriff, but declared the boy was killed unintentionally during a scuffle and that he did not rape Elizabeth Wentling as she charged. 2 state motor policemen tonight captured the accused man after a brief scuffle 30 miles from the scene of the crime, while some 50 other persons were searching the woods and fields of a farming area for him. Mrs. Olive Wentling, age 51, and her daughter are in a hospital at Oil City, Pennsylvania. Both were injured in a side-by-side leap from a 15-foot porch roof to escape the man Elizabeth said shot down her father and brother before her eyes. Wickenburg, Arizona, December 28th. A Los Angeles-bound bus overturned today on U.S. Highway 89, injuring 16 passengers and the driver. None of the injuries was believed to be serious. New York, December 28th. Bernard F. Gimbel, president of Gimbel Brothers Incorporated, and William R. Price, vice president of the International Studio Art Corporation, signed a contract today for sale of art treasures formerly owned by W.R. Hearst newspaper publisher. The contract signer said art authorities considered the sale of a scope seldom, if ever, paralleled in art history, and that the collection was valued at millions of dollars. The sale will be held starting January 20th in 2 New York City stores. The objects will be offered at marked prices. The announcement listed 110 divisions, including thousands of objects, among them 70 paneled rooms of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries from English, Dutch, and French castles. Some will be set up to show how they looked in their original state. There also will be stone elements from a monastery, 3 French cloisters, stone doorways, portals, gates, historic windows, staircases, grills, balconies, Spanish, Moorish, English, and Austrian ceilings, mantelpieces, chimney pieces, door knockers, stained glass, tapestries, carpets, arms and armor, in addition to furniture, paintings, and porcelains of many countries. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, December 28th. Your New Year's resolutions about swearing off drinking are useless. In a report today before the Symposium on Alcohol of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Dr. Charles H. Durfee of Wakefield, Rhode Island, declared that it is a popular misconception of physicians and laymen that drinking can be controlled by willpower, resolutions, or abstinent pledges. Willing against drinking just makes the problem worse for the individual because it keeps liquor constantly on his mind, he declared. Hey guys, if you are fascinated by the 1930s and 1940s and love this newspaper channel, maybe you would like my other channel, the World War II radio channel. There we play radio broadcasts from a specific date. I think you will enjoy that channel if you love this one, and don't forget to subscribe to it. And now for local and regional news. Springfield, Illinois, December 28th. Governor John Stell announced today that organization of the Illinois Emergency Defense Council had been completed. Corresponding to a similar agency established during the last war, the council will coordinate defense activities in the state with those of the National Defense Advisory Commission in Washington, D.C. The general chairman of the council is Murray W. Baker of Peoria, former chairman of the board of the Caterpillar Tractor Company. Divisional chairmen include Thomas E. Wilson, Chicago Packer, Larry J. Benson, Chicago Railroad official, Mrs. Edward J. Lehman, Sydney Cup leader, General Thomas S. Hammond of Harvey, Stuart Duncan of LaSalle, Ralphie Fisher of LaGrange, Paul Hansen, Chicago engineer, and Dean C. M. Thompson of the University of Illinois. New York, December 28th. Robert M. Hutchins, president of the University of Chicago, said today that although the possibility of imminent danger of attack was important in defense preparation, it was not important as the duty to the country to recapture and revitalize the principles of democracy. In a curtain address in the Metropolitan Opera, Hutchins said democracy as a fighting faith can be only as strong as the convictions which support it. Now, democracy is not merely a good form of government, he continued. It is the best. The reasons why it is the best are absurdly simple. It is the only form of government that can combine 3 characteristics: law, equality, and justice. A totalitarian state has none of these, and hence, if it is a state at all, it is the worst of all possible states. In the great struggle that may lie ahead, truth, justice, and freedom will conquer only if we know what they are and pay them the homage they deserve. This is the kind of preparedness most worth having, the kind without which the other preparation is worthless. Springfield, Illinois, December 28th. Governor John Stell revealed today that federal agencies already have earmarked for expenditure on national defense highways a total of $4 million of Illinois' 1941 highway construction budget of $17,500,000. The state will receive $5,782,000 from the federal government for 1941 highway construction, the governor said. This sum will be augmented by an estimated $11,700,000 in state motor fuel tax collections. Funds realized from state license fees, Stell explained, normally are exhausted by the payment of fixed costs, including policing, maintenance, and operating expense, administrative costs, and bond issue retirements and interests. A group of War Department orders totaling $17,074,004 for a new tent camp at Abilene, Texas, proving ground facilities and aircraft equipment featured yesterday's defense activities. Chicago District Company shared moderately in the business with a $3 million order to the Nash Calvinator Company for trailers for the Army which it is expected will be built at Kenosha, Wisconsin, and a $26,610 order for alloy steel placed with the Carnegie Illinois Steel Corporation. Downstate in Illinois, a $500,000 contract for the construction of a post laundry at Chanute Field was let to the Kuhn-Simmons Construction Association in Rantoul. The Navy recruiting station in Chicago has recruited 356 young men from the Chicago area thus far in December and sent them to the Great Lakes Naval Training Station for apprentice instruction, officers of the recruiting post reported yesterday. Postmaster Ernest J. Cruikshank reported yesterday that 609 aliens have registered at the new post office since the deadline Thursday night. They were required to state why they did not register before the deadline. A total of 253,377 aliens had registered here before the deadline. Tyranny arising not from the hands of would-be dictators, but from groups made revolutionary-minded by injustice and poor government threatens America today. This was the warning given by Dr. Earl Enyart Harper, director of the School of Fine Arts at the University of Iowa, to 2,000 business educators at the 43rd Annual Convention of the National Commercial Teachers Federation, which closed in the Hotel Sherman yesterday. Dr. Harper spoke at the morning session following a business meeting at which the name of the federation was changed to the National Business Teachers Association and officers were elected. The three fundamental evils of tyranny manifest in the world today are the breakdown of justice, the abolition of freedom of speech, and the abandonment of all moral and ethical principles of governmental procedure, Dr. Harper said. If democracy is to live and be handed down as a priceless heritage to our children, there must be justice everywhere in the land for every person. The dangerous element in public life in America today is the passivity of the mass of people toward the question of honesty, sincerity, and regard for righteousness in public affairs, he declared. George F. Barrett, who will assume the powers of Attorney General of Illinois 2 weeks from tomorrow, said yesterday that the first innovation he will set up at that time will be a vote fraud division in his Chicago office. Barrett said his reason for establishing the new department in his Chicago office rather than in Springfield is that most of the election frauds of past elections have been committed in the metropolis. He added, however, that the downstate region will benefit from the services of the election division of his office wherever and whenever they are needed. Pontiac, Illinois, December 28th. A claim for $17,500 has been filed against the estate of F. Lyndon Smith in behalf of the Democratic State Central Committee. It was disclosed today. The claim was filed in the Livingston County Court by attorney William F. Costigan of Bloomington, who said he was acting for Arthur A. Sullivan, Chicago attorney and chairman of the committee. Smith, whose death in a Springfield hospital March 9th was held to have been suicide, was state director of public works and once an influential figure in the Horner administration. Last March 28th, Attorney General Johnny Cassidy reported that Smith owed a Democratic campaign fund $17,381.10 at the time of his death. In Chicago today, Sullivan said the claim was filed in order to preserve our rights. Circuit Judge Robert Jerome Dunn will rule tomorrow on the intervening petition filed by 51 members that George B. McLean be ousted as business agent of the Bartenders Union and as a candidate for that office in the union election January 6th. Attorney A.C. Lewis, representing McLean, and attorney Harold Levy, who said he represented the union, argued against the petition yesterday. Raymond F. Hayes, counsel for the 51 bartenders, asserted that McLean, after first bringing suit on charges that Frank the Enforcer Nitty's gang had seized control of the union, had later sold out to Nitty and attempted to withdraw his suit after entering a secret agreement which would permit him to continue as business agent with the gang's backing. Hayes' petition also asked that McLean be held in contempt of court, that the January 6th election be postponed if permission cannot be obtained to write in names on the ballot, and that James Crowley, candidate for president of the union, be ousted from his present job as secretary-treasurer. 12 detectives from the state's attorney's office, under command of Lieutenants Charles Egan and Thomas Kelly, supplemented by uniformed police, will preserve order today at the election of officers of Local 705 of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in Electricians Hall, Ogden Avenue, and Washington Boulevard. The Guard was asked by a rank and file group, which is endeavoring to dethrone the present officers. Captain Daniel Gilbert, investigator of the state's attorney's office, conferred with heads of both tickets yesterday and said his only interest was to see that the balloting was orderly. The slate of incumbents is headed by Fred Teat, president. He is opposed by Ray Nelson, 2410 Wellington Avenue, who recently found a package of bullets on his doorstep. There are 8,000 members in the union, 3,300 of them gasoline filling station attendants. In the darkness, Patrolman Edward W. Woodrich would have appeared to be merely a man walking casually along a passageway beside a house at 327 North Menard Avenue, but a closer inspection would have shown that his .38 caliber pistol was in readiness and that he was alert. Suddenly he stopped, glanced down at a wooden box, then up to the window directly overhead, and sprinted for the rear of the house. As he entered the backyard, the door of the house opened and a figure came down the steps. "Stop," Woodrich commanded. The only answer was 3 quick shots and a snarling, "Take that, you blank." 2 of the bullets missed Woodrich. The third struck a sheaf of paper in his left breast pocket and glanced harmlessly aside. Woodrich dropped instinctively to one knee and returned fire. His opponent stumbled and fell, with the gun slipping from his grasp. Woodrich closed in, and the other man reached out for the fallen gun. Woodrich grappled with him and finally ended the fight with a blow from his revolver. Other policemen came running, but their help was not needed. At the Austin Avenue station, the prisoner was identified as Thomas Downs, 63 years old, 31 South Aberdeen Street. He was taken to the Bridewell Hospital, where it was found that Woodrich's 3 shots had struck him in the right shoulder, side, and ear. While physicians dressed his wounds, he screamed his disappointment at not having killed a bull before he cashed in. 2 squads of police from Central Station, one led personally by Captain Thomas Duffy, raided 12 Loop handbooks yesterday, while another place was raided by a squad from the Morals Division. 35 persons were arrested and held without bail. The Morals Division raid was at 128 West Lake Street. The other raids were at 11 North Clark Street, where 9 men were arrested and loudspeakers and wall boards were confiscated. 161 North Wabash Avenue, 114 North Dearborn Street, 54 and 64 West Randolph Street, 27 and 1219 South Wabash Avenue, 32 North State Street, 1209 South Michigan Avenue, 18 South Dearborn Street, 725 South State Street, and 19 North Clark Street. Other raids were made prior to Christmas on orders from Commissioner Allman. Mrs. Sophia Marino, 55 years old, 727 and a half Aldine Avenue, was booked yesterday for appearance tomorrow in felony court on a charge of mayhem as a result of being accused by Sam Cardinella, 3041 Sheffield Avenue, as the woman who threw a solution of lye in his face Friday morning. Physicians at Illinois Masonic Hospital said he may lose his sight. Mrs. Marino denied the attack, but said Cardinella, formerly a boarder, had promised to marry her, but had married another woman a year and a half ago. She also asserted he owed her $5,000 on a loan she had made to him to defend himself against a criminal charge. She is the mother of 4 children. Mary Wilson, 6 years old, of Ridgewood, a suburb of Joliet, was killed yesterday, and her brother and sister were injured when a train brushed them from a trestle over Hickory Creek 4 miles east of Joliet. Mary, her sister Beverly, 9, and their brother Harold Jr., 5, had been playing in Pilcher Park and climbed the railroad embankment to cross the trestle on their return to their home at 1615 Sterling Avenue. Charles Clapper of Joliet, fireman of the train, said it had slowed to round a curve approaching the trestle on which there are 2 tracks. He saw the children on the track, and he and the engineer, Gordon Taylor of New Lenox, Will County, attempted to brake the train. There was a space of several feet between the westbound track on which we were approaching and the eastbound track, Clapper said, and it was too wide for the children to jump to the safety of the other track. We saw them lie down on a platform paralleling the track. As the train came down upon them, one of the girls raised up. She was knocked between the rail supports into the creek bed 20 feet below. Her sister and brother also were brushed off the trestle by the train and fell into the shallow water. Beverly, who said the train approached too fast after it first whistled for her and the other children to retreat from the trestle, was pulling her brother and sister from the creek when a farmer, Oscar Williams, living on the Lincoln Highway, came to her assistance. Mary died on the way to Holy Cross Hospital in Joliet. Beverly suffered a possible skull fracture and severe shock, and her brother suffered cuts and bruises on the head and chest and shock. Harold Wilson, the father of the children, is a laborer. He and his wife have one other daughter. The train, which was bound for Joliet, was a commuter's train on the Rock Island Road. Memorial services commemorating the 37th anniversary of the Iroquois Theater fire, in which 575 persons lost their lives, will be held at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow in the City Council chambers. At 3:32 p.m., the exact moment the first alarm was rung in 1903, an alarm box in the chambers will sound the signal 26, which sent firemen to the theater. Hey guys, if you are fascinated by the 1930s and 1940s and love this newspaper channel, maybe you would like my other channel, the World War II radio channel. There we play radio broadcasts from a specific date. I think you will enjoy that channel if you love this one, and don't forget to subscribe to it. And in sports, Los Angeles, California, December 28th. Indiana's string of consecutive non-conference basketball victories was broken at 30 tonight when Southern California's Trojans handed the Big Ten team a 41-39 whipping. The defending National Collegiate champions absorbed the beating just before their scheduled airplane trip to New Orleans to play Kentucky in a Sugar Bowl net contest Monday. Indiana had won 3 straight games since it began a West Coast campaign a week ago. The game before a near-capacity crowd was close all the way. The score was tied 5 times in each half. Southern California led 17-15 at the intermission. The teams were deadlocked 39-all when Trojan guard John Luber threw in the winning basket just before the final gun. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, December 28th. A whirlwind rally in the last 2 minutes of play wiped out a 39-34 Illinois advantage and gave Temple University's basketball quintet a 42-41 victory for its 5th straight victory tonight. Max Wharton's layup shot with 30 seconds to go won the game. The game was the second of a doubleheader played before 8,000 at Convention Hall. St. Joseph's came from behind to upset Colorado 49-45 in the opener. Temple took an early 9-3 edge, but Illinois, previously beaten only by Pitt, rallied to go ahead 19-18 at the half. In the second half, the score was tied 3 times before the visitors erased a 28-27 Temple lead to go out in front 32-28 on points by Art Matheson and Bill Hocking. The teams exchanged points until it was 39-34 with 2 minutes to go. Angelo Musi and Howie Kahn set shots before Hocking got Illinois' last basket. A long shot by Kahn made it 41-40. Then Wharton intercepted an Illinois pass for an easy layup shot to win the game. Columbus, Ohio, December 28th. Michigan and Princeton triumphed tonight in a basketball doubleheader played before 3,129 fans. Michigan whipped Pittsburgh in overtime 46-40 after tying the score at 38-all in the regulation playing time. Ohio took a decisive beating from Princeton 40-41 in the second game. Michael Sofiak, Michigan forward, was the hero of the evening, leading his quintet away from impending defeat with an inspired exhibition of basket shooting. He captured scoring honors for the evening with 21 points, realized on 9 baskets and 3 free throws. New York, December 28th. Dr. Forrest C. Fogg Allen, University of Kansas's basketball coach and member of the National Rules Committee, today advocated a change in the rules to eliminate the wear and tear on players of high school age and younger. Dr. Allen, speaking at a meeting of some 100 Eastern coaches, officials, and writers, pointed out that research by physicians and high school members of the rules body showed that the game had become too fast for adolescent boys. I understand Floyd A. Rowe of Cleveland, chairman of the committee, has figures to show that the game as played today has shortened the stature of boys from 2 to 4 inches, said the veteran coach. For boys under 19, Fogg said, as he would either revive the center jump with the players rotating at the pivot position after each goal or allow 10 seconds after each basket with the officials putting the ball in play out of bounds at midcourt rather than beneath the basket. Akron, Ohio, December 28th. The Chicago Bruins suffered their second last-minute defeat in 2 nights by losing to the Goodyear team 40-38 tonight in a National Basketball League contest. The Goodyear took the lead 25-24 in the third period, then fell behind 37-30 with 5 minutes of playing time remaining. The tying and winning baskets came in the last half minute of play when Marvin Huffman dropped a shot from midcourt and Vacher connected on a follow shot with 2 seconds remaining. Toronto, Ontario, December 28th. The Toronto Maple Leafs increased their National Hockey League lead tonight by defeating the New York Rangers 3-2 before 13,247. The Leafs, in scoring their 14th victory of the season, had to come from behind to win after the Rangers took a 2-goal lead early in the second period. Tex Chisholm picked a good spot to score his second goal of the campaign when he lifted the puck into the net early in the third period on a smart play with little Billy Taylor to decide the issue. A free-for-all fight threatened in the first period during an argument near the Rangers bench. After 4 penalties had been handed out in quick order, 2 of them to each team, Coach Frank Boucher of the Rangers summoned referee Bill Stewart to the sidelines and protested the fact that manager Connie Smythe of the Leafs was standing behind the New York bench. Stewart ordered Smythe to move and another squabble ensued with Red Horner of the Leafs joining in. Captain Art Coulter swung at Smythe, but the blow failed to land. When the Toronto manager finally moved away from the bench, play was resumed. Let's take a look at the National Hockey League standings. Well, Toronto is still in first place. They have won 14, lost 5, tied 1, and they have 29 points. Detroit is second, 8, 6, and 5, 21 points. Boston is next, 8, 7, and 4, 20 points. Chicago, 7, 8, 4, 18 points. Montreal, 7, 9, 2, 16 points. New York Rangers, 6, 9, and 3, 15 points. New York Americans, 5, 11, and 5, 15 points. Los Angeles, California, December 28th. California's annual holiday football season gets underway tomorrow with a Man in Motion clinic out in Hollywood, where, in the intimate atmosphere of Gilmore Stadium, the champion Chicago Bears meet a team of National League All-Stars. A crowd of 20,000, headed by the elite of the motion picture world, a jury of college and high school coaches, and the complete personnel of both Rose Bowl contestants will contribute to the charities of the 4 Los Angeles newspapers, sponsors of the game. Another 20,000 will be deprived of an opportunity to see the mighty Bear squad perform its suddenly popularized offense by the peculiar Pacific Coast Conference amateur code, which keeps the pros out of Los Angeles' huge municipal coliseum, but attaches no sin to hiring men from the National League as coaches of conference teams. Phoenix, Arizona, December 28th. A stiff scrimmage session today brought the Nebraska Cornhuskers Phoenix's training to a close. They left for Pasadena, California tonight to play Stanford in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. Coach Lawrence Biff Jones will take the players tomorrow to see the game in Los Angeles between the Chicago Bears and the National Professional League All-Stars. It will be the first time the Nebraskans have seen the T formation used in the game. Jones has had his squad hard at work running plays from the formation used by Stanford in the New Year's Day foe. New York, December 28th. Johnny Mize, first baseman of the St. Louis Cardinals, lost his National League batting championship this year, but official averages released today showed he remained the circuit's leading slugger for the 3rd consecutive season. Standing out in the welter of miscellaneous information issued by the league was the fact that Mize made 368 total bases in 579 times at bat for a slugging percentage of .636, and also that he batted in the most runs, 137, one of the most important gauges to a player's worth. Although the .314 batting average was Mize's lowest in 11 years in organized baseball, this was the best year of his career for runs batted in. Previously, his best year was 113 in 1937 when he batted .364. New York, December 28th. Sale of the New York Yankees to a syndicate headed by James A. Farley, former Postmaster General and Democratic National Committee Chairman, which recently appeared to have been abandoned, today became a certainty, according to the New York World Telegram. It is expected that the deal will be closed in June, said the World Telegram. Farley will be president, Ed Barrow will be general manager under a 5-year contract, and Joe McCarthy will be manager for 1941 and 1942 under this new agreement, it was said, while George Weiss will remain in charge of minor league operations. New York, December 28th. The New York Giants announced today they had mailed contracts for the 1941 season to 29 players, and Secretary Ed Branick said prospects were that they would get them back in record time, signed. Carl Hubble and Mel Ott, the club's oldest players in point of service, already have signed, and shortstop Billy Georges is a carryover on a 3-year contract. The team's new coach, Gabby Hartnett, agreed to terms during the convention in Chicago. Boston, Massachusetts, December 28th. The Boston Red Sox Baseball Club announced tonight the outright release of Charlie Gelbert to Louisville of the American Association. Gelbert, who was obtained on waivers from Washington in the latter part of the past season, played third base while Jim Tabor was on the sidelines with appendicitis. And I'm Henry Chopper reporting. That is sports, and that is news as read from the Chicago Tribune for Sunday, December 29th, 1940. Have a swell day.